If you were a child of the 70s and 80s, then you are and maybe the 90s, then you are well aware of what a starting lineup figure is. And when these figures first came out back in 1988, it was a big deal for you to have all of your favorite players in 3-inch or 4-inch plastic. They didn't move.
No, they were not posable.
They didn't look much like the players, but it could sit on your desk, or you could shoot it with your BB gun, a la Kevin McAllister. Starting lineup figures definitely changed the toy game in 1988. In 1988, starting lineup by Kenner released 4 sets. They released baseball, they released football, they released basketball, the most sought after of all 4, and they released hockey, the ones that nobody bought in this country. In this episode, we're going to be focusing on the baseball series. Starting lineup's first set, again, came out in 1988, and it consisted of 124 players. Every team had 4 to 6 players, except for the Mets. They had 7. The Expos only had 1. The Blue Jays only had 1, because Kenner did not believe that the line would sell well in Canada. Each came with a baseball card.
That's an odd idea.
That they didn't think that it would sell well in baseball.
Canadians, no.
They sold hockey up there.
Okay. Oh, that might make sense.
That's
okay,
exactly why. They pushed hockey up there heavier.
Okay.
Each figure came with a baseball card along with the regular blue. It was on a big blue card. It looked like this. I'm going to put one right there. Look at this editing skills. There are some rarer packagings. Later on, there was a giveaway for a baseball on the packaging. If you had 5 proofs of purchases, you could send away and get a reproduction of an all-star baseball. Here's the commercial for that.
Some people will do anything to get a baseball. But if you buy 5 of your favorite starting lineup figures, you can get this official starting lineup baseball free. And catch this, it's got 25 autographs of today's greatest Major League players: Andre Dawson, Pedro Guerrero, Wade Boggs, Mike Scott, Don Mattingly. Just send in 5 proofs of purchase to this address for your free starting lineup baseball. It's going, get it before
There was also a giveaway for a t-shirt. In this instance, you had to send away 3 proofs of purchases, and if you sent 3 proofs of purchases, you would get this awesome looking baseball all-star t-shirt. Here's a commercial for that one.
Starting lineup, home of the winners, salutes the season's greatest winners like Canseco, Viola, and more. Congratulations to all. Now when you buy 3 starting lineup figures, you can get this award winners t-shirt for free. Featuring Viola, Hershiser, Canseco, Gibson, Savo, White. You can send your name, size, age, and 3 proofs of purchase here. The free starting lineup award winners t-shirt. Not in any store. Offer ends soon.
Along with these regular figures and the giveaway packaging, Kenner released 11 Canadian carded figures. The Canadian carded figures had English and French languages on them. That's how you could tell them apart. They would.
There's a law in Canada.
There is?
Yeah, there's a law that you have to have French and English on everything.
There you go. So there was 11 figures. We will discuss them as we go through the figures. Which 11 figures they were? Why don't you guess right now before we get there? Which 11 figures do you think were produced in 1988?
Gordie Howe.
Gordie Howe. I'm not talking about hockey again.
Oh, sorry.
Baseball. The only difference between the Canadian ones and the American ones is the back of the Canadians one were blank, where the backs of the United States one had a checklist for all of the figures, all 124 figures. The line did so well at the beginning. Parker Brothers jumped on board and they started a starting lineup game. The game included these talking baseball cards that you would plug in.
I remember this.
And you would, I'll show you the game right here. You would be able to play the game with these talking baseball cards. Those children that played it back in 1988 said it was one of the best baseball reality games ever made. We'll talk about those in another episode. They're considered by baseball card collectors to be some of the hardest oddball cards to find. In this episode, we are going to talk specifically about the starting lineup baseball set. So as I said earlier, each team had 4 to 6 starting lineup figures except for 3. The Mets had the most with 7. The Expos and the Blue Jays, those Canadian teams, only had one each. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at...
One quick question.
What's your one quick question?
One quick question. What year did these come out?
1988.
88. So the Mets had won the World Series in 86. Could that be why they had more figures?
That is exactly why. If you notice, some of the more successful teams have more figures in the line than some of the less successful teams at that time. In 1988, there were some teams that were good. There were some teams that were not. As always, there were some teams that are in the National League then that are now in the American League, and vice versa. You tell me what they are as I go along. We will look at the National League teams first. We're going to look at each team and each player from each team and how they are posed. The first figures we're going to look at are from the St. Louis Cardinals. You want to say anything about St. Louis Cardinals?
I don't know much about the St. Louis Cardinals.
St. Louis Cardinals were very good at this time. They had a run and gun offense. They would run the bases and score, managed by Dallas Green, if I remember correctly. I was a big baseball fan in the 1980s. Watched it constantly. Here are the figures from the St. Louis Cardinals. Ozzie Smith, who is their all-star shortstop. He came in the fielding position. There are apparently 7 or 8 different positions. Ozzie Smith was fielding. Vince Coleman, the stolen base leader of the National League. He came in a sliding pose, which is appropriate because he was the stolen base leader. Tommy Herr, their second baseman, had a swinging right-handed stance. Willie McGee, who for the last 30-something years, me and my friend have considered the ugliest man ever to play baseball.
Oh, that's so mean.
Just saying. It's been a debate with my friend group for years and years and years. And when we talk about Willie McGee, to this day, we still talk about him.
That's not.
Ugliest man of baseball.
We are going to get we're going to get in trouble now.
St. Louis fans,
sorry.
Comment.
Sorry, St. Louis.
He is standing in his stance, in his baseball stance like this. That's my favorite one, stance. And finally, pitcher Todd Worrell, who is in his wind-up stance. Those are the St. Louis Cardinals. Next up, the Atlanta Braves. Brian's not going to talk a lot during this episode.
I don't have a lot to add here.
Again,
maybe when we get to the Mets.
It's funny, when I was preparing this, I was preparing my notes for this, all the players that come up. I knew every single team that every player played for at that time. This was a big time for baseball for me. Do you want to know why it was a big time for baseball for me?
No.
I was playing Stratomatic baseball with my friends, so we had a Stratomatic league that we would play at that time in our lives, and we played for money.
I got to say, I never really followed baseball that closely.
And then what happened? What happens to every teenage boy? Girls stopped loving baseball. The Atlanta Braves. First up is Dale Murphy, one of my all-time favorite players. He is in the swinging right stance. You want to say something? Go ahead. No.
Who?
You? Nothing?
Who?
Nothing on Dale Murphy?
Dale Murphy? No, I don't know. Sorry.
Brian's not a baseball fan.
I'm not really a baseball fan. I mean, I like it, but I don't follow it that closely.
Ken Oberkfeld, who was in the stance position, again, my favorite. Ozzie Virgil, who was in the... Which was he in the standard position also? He's in the stance position. Zane Smith, pitcher, in a pitching position. And that's it. As you can tell, the Atlanta Braves were not good at this time. There was only 4 figures in the line for them. Actually, no, there was 5. Ken Griffey Sr. was in this too, and he was in the right swing position. Ken Griffey Jr. is Ken Griffey Sr.'s father.
They were not America's team just yet, right?
They were
Ted
not
Turner
yet.
Had not
no,
yet. Okay.
Not in 1988. They were not very good.
Right.
Next, the team that was actually very good at this time, the Chicago Cubs, even though they could not
I do know
win
enough about
the
baseball
World
to know
Series.
that statement is a little shocking at this moment.
Yes.
But the Chicago Cubs were good.
Cubs were good in the 1980s around this time. Cubs were good, Mets were good, Cardinals were good. The Cubs had Leon Durham, their first baseman. He was in their right swinging stance. My all-time favorite player, Ryan Sandberg. He's in the home run swing stance. Ryan's already Hall of Famer. Andre Dawson, Hall of Famer. He's also in a hitting stance, in a right swinging stance. Jody Davis, their catcher, is the first one we're looking at who's in the catcher stance. Looks like this.
Oh, nice.
Listen, they were very cookie-cutter figures back then. Rick Sutcliffe, one of the pitchers, he was in the pitching stance. Sean Dunston, their shortstop, was in the fielding stance. And that was it for them. You have a question?
No, not yet. But I do have something to add later.
Okay, later. If you have any comments, comment below. If you like what we're doing here, we're planning on going through all of the 1988 series for the different sports. This is our first attempt at it because baseball's opening day is right upon us.
Oh yeah, it's coming up.
And the love of fall is beginning. Reminds me of all the good things in life. The end of school, summer, a lot more free time, better weather, longer days.
Yeah.
Next up is the Phillies, led by their Hall of Fame third baseman Mike Schmidt, who is in the swinging right position. If you notice, a lot of them are in this same position. They use this body type over and over again. Von Hayes is in the running swing position. Von Hayes was their third baseman, if I remember correctly.
The running swings with the bat behind.
Yes,
And-
that's
yeah,
exactly
okay.
it. Brian knows what these
Yeah.
figures. Juan Samuel, who was their quick outfielder, he is in a fielding. No, he's a shortstop. He was in the fielding position. Sean Rowley, one of their pitchers, in the pitching position, and Steve Bedroza, also one of their pitchers. The first one we're seeing in the wind-up position, like that.
Nice.
Next up is the Padres with one of the greatest players of all time leading them, Hall of Famer Tony Gwynn,
Yep.
who is in his stance position. Catcher Benito Santiago in his catcher position. John Kruk in his right-handed swing position. Chris Brown in his swing running position. Again, Padres weren't so good at that time. There's only 4 of them.
But that was the old brown uniform, so
That's
people
right.
might like those.
That's what the old Brown
Yeah.
uniforms are.
So they might be a little more collectible because of that.
The Pittsburgh Pirates, they had a couple. Sid Bream, pitcher, no, Sid Bream's their first baseman. Sid Bream, their first baseman, he is in the running swing. Barry Bonds.
Who?
Barry Bonds.
Barry Bonds, who?
Thin Barry Bonds. He's in the stance position. This is pre-steroid Barry Bonds.
Not giant.
Not giant head.
Not we have to get him a new hat.
Looked like
Yeah.
this back in the Pirates uniform. Very good.
Right.
Andy Van Slyke, their outfielder, he was in the... Wait, no, he's in a really strange... Oh, he's in the catching run position. He's like this.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite of all the positions. Mike Dunn is in a pitching position, and Bobby Bonilla, who the Mets pay every year on July... What is it? I think it's July 1st. On July 1st, he was in the hitting run position.
Okay.
Bobby Bonilla, Mets fans. Not a Met fan. I'm not a Met fan. Brian is. Bobby Bonilla, still getting paid. 30. I cursed. 30 years later, I have to edit that out. Next up are the Dodgers.
Pedro Guerrero.
You remember Pedro Guerrero?
I got a funny story about that, but it's not about that.
Pedro Guerrero's in the stance position. Fernando Valenzuela, pitcher extraordinaire, is in the pitching position. Steve Sachs, their second baseman, is in the swinging run position. Mike Marshall is in the running catch position. Franklin Stubbs is in the running swing position also. Next up are the Reds. Eric Davis. He's in the right-handed swing position. Pete Rose. Pete Rose. Pete Rose. He is also in the swinging run position. Cal Daniels in the stance position. Buddy Bell in the fielding position. And Staten Island's own John Franco in the pitching position.
Nicely done.
Next up, the one and only, the New York Mets.
Yes.
The New York Mets included Darryl Strawberry in the running stance. He also had a Canadian card. Didn't mention it before, but Andre Dawson was the first one we came across that had a Canadian card. Remember, I said there's 11 of them.
Why would Strawberry have a Canadian?
Because the Mets were popular.
Yeah. Okay.
Keith Hernandez, their first baseman, is in the stance position.
That's right.
Gary Carter in the catcher position. He also had a Canadian card. Dwight Gooden is in the wind-up position. Lenny Dykstra in the sliding position. Kevin McReynolds in the swinging right position. And Hojo himself, Howard Johnson, in the left-handed swing position. He was the first lefty we're coming across.
Oh, really? That's cool.
So they had 7. 7 of the 2 were also in the Canadian series.
I like that they went for that accuracy.
Me too.
That's good. I like that.
Yes, they did. They actually did do
Yeah.
that. Next up are the Houston Astros, who were in the National League at the time. They are led by Mike Scott. He's in the pitching position. Nolan Ryan, the Hall of Famer, in the windup position. Glenn Davis, their first baseman, if I remember correctly, in their swinging right position. Billy Hatcher, their outfielder, in the running catch position. Alan Ashby in the catching position. I like that. I know you guys love that I'm doing that. Finally, in the National League, the last National League team, not the New York Giants, the San Francisco Giants. What am I talking about? It's not 1956.
New York Giants would have been, yeah.
They made those later on, actually.
Oh, yeah, I want to talk about that.
The San Francisco Giants, Will Clark, their first baseman, he's in the stance position. Jeffrey Leonard, their outfielder, is in the left-handed swing position. Another left-hand. I know you like that I'm making those faces. Rick Rushkull is in the pitching position. Candy Maldonado, one of the best names ever in baseball, is in the stance position. And finally, last but not least, the Montreal Expos, Tim Raines, who is in the sliding position.
One figure. The Expos?
One figure for the Expos.
Whoa.
Just one. I guess when we do the NHL, we'll have to compare to see how many of the Canadian teams actually have figures compared to the National Baseball. Next up, we'll look at the American League. So in the American League, same as the National League, all teams had either 4 or 6, and then only one team had 1, and that one team is the Toronto Blue Jays, and they had George Bell. He also came in on a Canadian card, just like Tim Raines came in on a Canadian card. You got to figure that you're selling the Canadian teams in Canada, right? The Angels will start with their first baseman, Wally Joyner, who's in the right-handed swinging position. Mike Witt, who's in the pitching position. Brian Downing in the swinging right position, right? Donnie Moore, baseball's great Donnie Moore, in the wind-up position. Finally, Devon White in the slide position. Also one of my favorite poses is the slide position. Next, the Oakland A's, everybody's own favorite team, because it consists of Jose Canseco in the swinging right position, and the one and only Mark McGwire in the stance position. He looked a little thinner than he does now. Also included are their shortstop Carney Lansford in the fielding position, the big guy Dave Parker in a right-handed swing position. His is very interesting because he was traded before the season, so his figure comes with a Cincinnati Reds card, not an Oakland A's card.
Oh, that's cool. That makes it extra collectible, I'm guessing?
No.
Really?
They just didn't have time to make the Oakland A's one. He's not any rarer or more unique than anyone else.
Oh, okay.
The Milwaukee Brewers will start with their Hall of Famer, Robin Yount, who is in their running catch position. Rob Deere, who's in the swinging right position. Teddy Higuera, who's in the pitching position. Hall of Famer Paul Molitor in the swinging right position. And B.J. Surhoff in the catching position. The Cleveland Indians will start with Joe Carter, the one, the only Joe Carter. Probably will sell well in Canada after his big home run. He's in the right-handed swing position. Mel Hall, right-handed swing position. Corey Schneider in the slide position. Pat Tabler in the fielding position.
I was going to say fielding.
And Julio Franco in the running catch position. We're still going through. The Detroit Tigers, there are 124 figures in their first line, which was not proven if it would be successful or not.
That's a big run.
And they released 124 figures. I have some things to talk about at the end about. I don't understand why they didn't do so. They could have done things better. The Detroit Tigers consisted of Jack Morris, who was in the wind-up position, Alan Trammell, their shortstop, who was in the fielding position, Lou Whitaker, their second baseman, one of the best combinations, double play combination in the history of baseball. He's in the stance position. Willie Hernandez is in the pitching position, and Matt Noakes is in the catching position. The Kansas City Royals, who about this time in my life, I actually went there to see the Yankees play the Royals around 1988.
Nice.
I was a big George Brett fan because we share the same birthday.
Nice.
In the Kansas City Royals set is the one and only George Brett, Hall of Famer. He's in the fielding position. He also has a Canadian card. Brett Saberhagen, he's in the pitching position. Dan Quisenberry, relief great in the wind-up position. Danny Tartabull, people might know him
Know
from
the name.
Seinfeld. He is in the swinging position. And Kevin Seitzer in the swinging right position. The Baltimore Orioles consisted of Hall of Famer Eddie Murray in the swinging right position. Hall of Famer Cal Ripken in the fielding position. Fred Lynn in the right-handed swing position. Mike Boddicker in the pitching position. Terry Kennedy in the catching position. I should make you do that from now on.
Just going to keep doing that?
I'll do it every time I catch one. The hated Boston Red Sox. Sorry, that's me. I'm a New York fan. If you're a Red Sox fan, more power to you.
I have nothing against them.
Hated them
Boston,
since
you're a fine city.
Hated them since I was a kid. I don't hate Boston. I hate the Boston Red Sox. Hall of Famer Wade Boggs,
Wade Boggs,
in the
though.
stance
How can you
position.
hate Wade Boggs? He was on-
Roger Clemens.
He was on Cheers.
In the wind-up position. Jim Rice, another Hall of Famer, in the right-handed swing position. Dwight Evans in the stance position. And Ellis Burks in the running catch position.
Unfortunately, no Mayday Malone figure.
No Sam Mayday Malone figure. The Texas Rangers consisted of Pete Incaviglia in the swinging right position, Pete O'Brien in the running swing position, Larry Parrish in the stance position, Charlie Huff, who is probably about 80 at this point, in the pitching position, and Ruben Sierra in the running catch position. The Chicago White Sox consisted of Harold Baines in the running swing position, Ozzie Guillen in the stance position, Greg Walker in the fielding position, Gary Reedus in the sliding position. They only put the quick people in the sliding position. Carlton Fisk in the stance position. He should have been in the catching position. He's a Hall of Fame catcher. The Seattle Mariners. You know who Carlton Fisk is? You know Carlton Fisk?
He's relating to Wilson Fisk, right?
No. He's not related.
Wilson Fisk's brother?
Not related to the Kingpin.
Oh, sorry.
The Seattle Mariners consisted of Jim Presley in the stance position, Alvin Davis in the hitting lefty position, Mark Langston in the pitching position, and Ken Phelps in the stance position. One of the worst trades in Yankee history. The Minnesota Twins consisted of their Hall of Famer Kirby Puckett in their running swing position, Kent Herbeck in the swinging right position, Gary Gaetti in the stance position, Jeff Reardon in the pitching position, Tom Brunansky in the running catch position, and the great Frank Viola in the pitching position. Last but not least, the greatest team of all time, the New York Yankees. Just so you know, Wade Boggs and Roger Clemens were also in the Canadian set. So we only have 3 more. So the Mets had 2, the Red Sox had 2. New York Yankees consisted of Ricky Henderson, who's in the slide position. He was a Canadian figure also. Don Mattingly in the stance position. This figure sat on my desk for years. He is also a Canadian figure. Dave Winfield, another Hall of Famer. Ricky Henderson, him both Hall of Famers. A swinging right figure, also in the Canadian issue. That's 3, in case you're wondering. I guess the Yankees were big in Canada.
Yankees have always been big.
Not big as us. We're big in Japan.
Big in Japan.
Willie Randolph in the fielding position, one of my all-time favorite players. Dave Righetti, at the time, was a starting pitcher at America, so he didn't quite make the change to relief yet. He's in the pitching position. And finally, Jack Clark, who I have signed somewhere upstairs. I couldn't find it for this video. He is in the swinging right position, and he comes with a St. Louis Cardinals card because he was traded during the offseason. Nice. There was also some players that were supposed to be produced, but because they were traded before the season started, they were not released. But their cards were released. These players are Glenn Wilson from the Philadelphia Phillies, Goose Gossage, one of my favorites,
Goose Gossage,
from the San Diego Padres, Bob Welch from the Dodgers, Lee Smith from the Cubs, Kurt Gibson from the Tigers. He was traded that year to the Dodgers, and we had a big thing happen after that. Mike Davis from the Oakland A's, and Phil Bradley from the Seattle Mariners. That is all 124 figures in the starting lineup line. I hope you stuck with us the whole entire time. That brings back a lot of memories. I had a bunch of these as a kid around. I still have some floating around the house somewhere up in the attic.
You know, it's funny. When I was younger, I had no interest in sports at all.
Right.
None. I mean, I played sports.
Okay.
But I didn't like watching them. On TV or anything. I liked going to the ballpark as a kid, but
I went to the ballpark a lot when I was a kid.
But I didn't like watching baseball on TV.
Okay.
I didn't really watch football or basketball or anything like that, really. But as I get older, I've actually found myself appreciating sports more.
Do you have more patience for it?
I probably do, yeah. I mean, it used to be when I was a kid, I had no interest in it.
And what do you watch mostly?
Mostly football.
Okay.
Yeah,
See, I watch no football.
Yeah, I watch a lot of football. But I feel like, looking at all this, I feel like there's something I missed. Something I missed out on,
You missed out on it.
Yeah, and that makes me a little sad.
It's funny because
I have regrets about not appreciating this more when I was younger.
We've talked about this before, and I off to not on our show, but we've talked about this with Brian when he was growing up, played Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah, love Dungeons.
I never played Dungeons and Dragons. I have never in my life played Dungeons and Dragons. I played Stratomac baseball with my friends because we were all baseball fans. So we would sit when we were younger, when we were in like 9 or 10, 11 years old.
Yeah.
We would have a sleepover at one of our friends' house, and we would sit up all night and we would play Stratomac baseball.
Right.
We would trade plays, and we'd play a whole season, and we'd keep score and we'd keep standings, and that's what we did. I was growing up was a huge baseball fan, and at this point in my life, I rarely watch baseball. At this point, I watch a lot of hockey and a lot of soccer now.
I watch a lot of football, and I do watch the Mets on the occasions. that I can watch them.
Right.
Yeah. But again, I look at all this and I think, I missed out on something. There's something I missed.
There was,
You know?
and this is important for us moving forward because if starting lineup doesn't come out and doesn't become successful, then we never have.
Oh, the McFarlane line.
We never had
the
the
McFarlane
McFarlane
line is just a groundbreaking set of figures. The detail.
They kind of destroyed starting lineup too. So once McFarlane comes out with his detail, the detail on
Oh,
it,
the
the detail
details
between a McFarlane figure and a starting lineup figure,
the football figures
are
it looks
ridiculous.
exactly like them.
Yeah,
and
and
Joe Namath figure is
they did such a good
it's
job on
incredible.
those.
Yeah.
We will be looking at, as time goes on, we will be looking at starting lineup figures from all the different series. As we said, we will also be looking at some of the Todd McFarlane figures down the road. I hope you enjoyed this. Love what you collect.
Collect what you love.
See you next time.